A nurse was unfairly dismissed for helping a humble elderly woman dressed in dirty clothes. 5 days later, he was paralyzed upon receiving a call. Armando Salazar was finishing another day of work at San Angel Hospital, located in the heart of Guadalajara. As he said goodbye to his colleagues and reviewed the last reports, weariness weighed on his shoulders. Armando, of medium height with brown hair and attentive eyes, had the demeanor of someone carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Married to Estella, a primary school teacher, they had a 5-year-old daughter. Tomorrow is another day, Armando told himself as he changed in the locker room. His colleagues were talking about the approaching night. "Are you going to a party tonight, Armando?" one of them asked with a mischievous smile. "No, friends. My party is with medicine books and helping Valeria with her homework," Armando replied with a tired smile. He was a dedicated nurse on his way to becoming a doctor. The nights were long, divided between studying and caring for his daughter. His wife, Estella, also faced double shifts between teaching and managing the household. At home, Armando tried to balance his time between helping her and dedicating himself to his studies. Walking through the hospital parking lot, Armando reflected on his journey. He came from a humble family, and every achievement was the result of much effort. Landing a job at San Angel Hospital, one of the most renowned in the city, was a significant milestone in his life. "You will go far, Armando. Never doubt that." His late father's voice resonated in his head almost daily. Getting into his old but reliable car, he called Estella. "Hello, love, I'm on my way. Do you need me to buy something?" Armando asked from the other end of the line. Estella, with her always sweet voice, replied, "No, dear, just come home safely." Armando arrived home exhausted, but with a slight smile on his lips. Upon entering, he was greeted by Estella's warm "good evening" from the kitchen, where she was preparing dinner. "How was your day, dear?" she asked, turning to greet him with a radiant smile. "I'm happy, Estella," Armando replied, returning the embrace. He was eager to start working at San Angel. "You know we need the money, especially now with Victoria's treatment costs." Their 5-year-old daughter, Victoria, suffered from a rare disease that required continuous and expensive care. All the money Armando and Estella earned went towards their daughter's treatment. "I know you're doing everything you can," Estella said, looking at him with understanding eyes. "And how are things at the hospital? You seem a bit worried," she added. Armando looked at her and told her about his boss, Dr. Sandoval, who made things difficult. "He's demanding, and it seems like nothing I do is enough," Armando vented. "But that's why you're studying to be a doctor, isn't it? So you can do more for Victoria and other patients," Estella reminded him as they sat down for dinner. "Yes, it's true. Every day I spend at that hospital, I learn more, and that gives me more strength to keep going with my studies," Armando agreed, taking his wife's hand in gratitude. After dinner, while Estella tidied up the kitchen, Armando went to Victoria's room where she was already asleep. As he watched her sleeping peacefully, like an angel who didn't seem to be ill at all, he felt a surge of determination. "I will do everything I can to give you a better life, my little one," he silently promised. In that moment, fatigue gave way to a renewed sense of purpose. Armando knew the road ahead would be long and difficult, but looking at Victoria, he was sure it would be worth it. The next morning, Armando woke up before dawn, preparing for another challenging day. Before going to work, he had a crucial commitment: taking Victoria to a routine medical checkup. The tranquil morning atmosphere didn't betray the storms of worries forming in his mind. Arriving at the pediatric hospital, Armando held Victoria's small hand, trying to hide his anxiety. The consultation went as usual until the doctor gave them unexpected news. Victoria's treatment needed to be intensified. "This means a more effective, but also more expensive medication that we need to import," the doctor explained. Armando's heart sank. How could he afford these additional costs? On the way back home, Armando was lost in his thoughts. He began to consider all the possibilities to increase their income. "Maybe I can take extra shifts at the hospital or do additional jobs on weekends, like gardening for the neighbors," he thought, desperate to find a solution. The worry reflected on his face as Victoria, oblivious to the adults' problems, sang a children's song in the backseat of the car. Leaving Victoria at home with Estella, Armando hurried to San Angel Hospital. The urgency of the moment made him lose track of time, and he arrived 5 minutes late. Upon entering, he was confronted by Dr. Sandoval. "Armando Salazar, you're late," Dr. Sandoval said reproachfully. Armando tried to explain. "Dr. Sandoval, I had an important medical appointment with my daughter this morning." But he was interrupted by Dr. Sandoval, who said coldly, "Armando, you're new here. We expect punctuality. This cannot happen again." Armando nodded, holding back the frustration and worry that threatened to overwhelm him. After a tumultuous start to the morning, the rest of Armando's day at San Angel Hospital passed without major incidents. He devoted himself to each patient with the attention and care he always valued in his work. The hospital, known for its excellence and affluent clientele, maintained an atmosphere of calm and sophistication. During his brief break, Armando retreated to a small room reserved for staff, seeking a moment of tranquility amidst the chaos of his day. While resting, Armando's thoughts oscillated between concern for Victoria and the pressure at work. He just wished for a few minutes of peace before resuming his duties. However, that brief moment of peace was interrupted by an unusual commotion coming from the reception area. Curious and concerned, Armando decided to see what was happening. Upon reaching the reception, he found a chaotic scene. An elderly woman, dressed in dirty clothes and looking humble, was clearly in distress. She could barely stand and was asking for help in a weak and trembling voice. The receptionist, Mariana, looked at the woman with discomfort. "Please, I need documents or your health insurance card to assist you," she said, trying to maintain composure. The woman, panting and visibly ill, replied with difficulty, "I don't have my documents. Please help me." Her voice was a desperate whisper, and she seemed on the verge of fainting. Mariana, visibly annoyed, responded, "I'm sorry, but this is a private hospital. You need to go to a public hospital. We can't assist you here without the necessary documents. Please call Dr. Valeria Mendoza." The woman, panting and visibly ill, replied with difficulty, "I don't have my documents. Please help me." Her voice was a desperate whisper, and she seemed on the verge of fainting. Mariana, visibly annoyed, responded, "I'm sorry, but this is a private hospital. You need to go to a public hospital. We can't assist you here without the necessary documents. Please call Dr. Valeria Mendoza," she weakly pleaded. Valeria Mendoza was a renowned doctor in the region, known for her exceptional skills and commitment to medicine. Mariana, the receptionist, heard the woman's plea and responded with disdain, "I can't bother Dr. Mendoza, our most important physician, for someone without documents or health insurance. Please find a public hospital. If you don't leave, I'll have to call security." The woman, growing weaker by the moment, leaned on the counter, struggling to stay conscious. Armando, observing the scene incredulously, felt a surge of indignation. He knew the hospital was exclusive, but the woman's condition was clearly critical. Where was the oath all doctors took upon graduating? Without a second thought, he approached, saying, "Wait, I can help." He led the woman to one of the examination rooms to see what was wrong. Mariana looked at him surprised, mumbling something about hospital policies, but Armando was already helping the woman walk to an empty examination room. He knew he might face consequences for his actions, but the need to help someone in distress was stronger. Armando, a mix of concern and determination, supported the woman's arm, guiding her carefully to an empty examination room. She was visibly weak, barely able to keep her eyes open, and her breathing was labored. "It's going to be okay," Armando reassured her in a soft tone, trying to calm her as he opened the door to the examination room. Once inside, with visible effort, the woman asked, "Are you a doctor?" Armando replied as he helped her sit on a reclining chair. "I'm not a doctor, but I'm studying hard to become one someday. I work here recently, but I'm good at what I do." He spoke with a mix of humility and pride as he quickly assessed the woman's condition. Armando noticed her low blood pressure and suspected a heart problem. "I'm going to measure your blood pressure and give you something to stabilize it," he said, looking for the blood pressure cuff and a stethoscope. As he performed the procedure, he conversed with her, trying to keep her conscious and calm. After measuring her blood pressure and briefly auscultating, Armando administered medication to stabilize her blood pressure. "This should help with your blood pressure, but you need a more detailed examination, especially for your heart," he explained with evident concern in his voice. Then he decided to take her to the staff break room, a more private place where she wouldn't attract the attention of the hospital administration or other patients. "Stay here until I finish my shift. I'll come back to check on you and help in any way I can," Armando assured her, covering her with a blanket to ensure her comfort. The woman, now slightly more stable, looked at Armando with gratitude. "Thank you, young man. You're an angel," she said weakly but sincerely. "Please call Dr. Valeria Mendoza," she pleaded weakly. Valeria Mendoza was a renowned doctor in the region, known for her exceptional skills and commitment to medicine. Mariana, the receptionist, heard the woman's request and responded with a disdainful expression. "I can't bother Dr. Mendoza, our most important physician, for someone without documents or health insurance. Please find a public hospital. If you don't leave, I'll have to call." Her voice was firm, emphasizing the hospital's strict policy. The woman, growing weaker by the moment, leaned on the counter, struggling to stay conscious. Armando, observing the scene incredulously, felt a surge of indignation. He knew the hospital was exclusive, but the woman's condition was clearly critical. Where was the oath that all doctors take upon graduation? Without a second thought, he approached. "Wait, I can help," he said, approaching the woman. "We'll take you to one of the consultation rooms to see what's happening." Mariana looked at him surprised, mumbling something about hospital policies, but Armando was already helping the woman walk to one of the consultation rooms. He knew he might face consequences for his actions, but the need to help someone in distress was stronger. Armando, with a mixture of concern and determination, held the woman's arm, guiding her carefully to an empty consultation room. She was visibly weak, barely able to keep her eyes open, and her breathing was labored. "Everything is going to be okay," Armando spoke softly, trying to calm her as he opened the door to the consultation room. Once inside, with visible effort, the woman asked, "Are you a doctor?" He replied as he helped her sit in a reclining chair. "I'm not a doctor, but I'm studying hard to become one someday. I work here recently, but I'm good at what I do." He spoke with a mix of humility and pride as he quickly assessed the woman's condition. Armando noticed her low blood pressure and suspected a cardiac issue. "I'm going to measure your blood pressure and give you something to stabilize it," he said, searching for the sphygmomanometer and stethoscope. While performing the procedure, he conversed with her, trying to keep her conscious and calm. After measuring her blood pressure and conducting a brief auscultation, Armando administered a medication to stabilize her blood pressure. "This should help with your blood pressure, but you need a more detailed examination, especially for your heart," he explained with evident concern in his voice. Then he decided to take her to the staff lounge, a more private place where they wouldn't attract the hospital administration's or other patients' attention. "Stay here until my shift ends. I'll come back to check on you and help with whatever I can," Armando assured her, covering her with a blanket for comfort. The woman, now slightly more stable, looked at Armando with gratitude. "Thank you, young man. You're an angel," she said weakly but sincerely. Armando smiled faintly, relieved to have been able to help, but he knew he still had a long day ahead. He left the room, discreetly closing the door behind him, and returned to work, worried yet hopeful to do more for the lady later. At the end of his shift, Armando was abruptly summoned to Dr. Sandoval's office. His boss entered the imposing space, reflecting Dr. Sandoval's authority in the hospital. Seated behind a large desk, Dr. Sandoval looked at Armando with a stern expression. "Armando Salazar, it's you again," he began with an unmistakably severe tone. "Mariana informed me about today's incident. You attended to an elderly woman without documents and, worst of all, without means to pay. That is unacceptable." Armando, maintaining his composure, tried to explain. "Dr. Sandoval, I understand the hospital policy, but that lady needed help. Every human being deserves to be treated with dignity, regardless of their social status. I am willing to cover the treatment costs, even if it means deducting them from my salary." However, Dr. Sandoval didn't let Armando finish. "Salazar, what you did goes against all our rules. This isn't just a matter of money, it's a matter of principle. You're fired. You can leave now." Dr. Sandoval's voice was cold, leaving no room for discussion or appeal. Armando felt a mix of indignation and desolation. He knew he had done the right thing by helping the lady, but now he faced the consequences of his actions. He rose, casting one last glance at Dr. Sandoval, and left the office in silence, walking towards the rest area where the lady was. Armando was engulfed in a sea of worries, wondering how he would support his family and take care of his daughter now that he had lost his job. The responsibility weighed heavily on his shoulders, but at that moment, he knew he needed to focus on the well-being of the lady he had helped. Upon reaching the rest area, he found the lady asleep, her breathing now more stable. Gently, Armando woke her. "Excuse me, but I need to talk to you," he said softly. The lady opened her eyes slowly, seeming a bit stronger than before. "How are you feeling?" Armando asked, genuinely concerned. The lady looked at Armando with gratitude. "I feel better thanks to you," she replied, "but I don't want to cause any more trouble. I can leave now." However, Armando insisted, "I can't let you go like this. Please come with me to my house. You need a place to rest and recuperate." The lady hesitated, but Armando's sincere concern convinced her. "All right, I accept your kindness," she said, her voice still weak. "But this didn't cause you any problems, did it? Your boss, he didn't complain to you?" Armando paused for a moment, thinking about how to respond. "My boss is a difficult person. That's true," Armando began. "He was transferred here recently and has been strict with the hospital rules. But don't worry about that now. The important thing is that you're well." Armando then helped the lady to her feet and accompanied her to the hospital exit. He felt a mix of emotions, concern for his own future, satisfaction at having done the right thing, and some relief at leaving behind such a rigid work environment. As they walked slowly, Armando thought about how he would explain the situation to Estella and how they would face the challenges ahead. While Armando drove his car, the lady sat beside him, looking timidly out the window. The silence was only interrupted by the gentle sound of the engine and the occasional noise from the city outside. Armando broke the silence. "I hope you'll like the food my wife prepares. She's cooking a special dinner with a lot of care. I've already told her about you. She's a very understanding and welcoming woman." The lady turned to him, somewhat apprehensive. "Your wife won't mind receiving an unexpected visitor like me?" she asked with a fragile voice. Armando smiled faintly. "No, of course not. Estella has always been amazing. Besides, she has a big heart. Don't worry." As the car continued on its way, the lady seemed lost in her thoughts, gazing at the passing streets. "What's your name?" Armando asked, trying to keep the conversation light. "My name is Luz," she replied. "Doña Luz." Armando then asked delicately, "Doña Luz, do you have family?" She sighed, a melancholic expression passing over her face. "I'm not alone. I'm a widow now. Life has taken me down lonely paths." Armando noticed the sadness in her voice and decided not to ask any more questions. He knew that everyone carries their own burdens, and he didn't want to invade her privacy. When Armando and Doña Luz entered the house, they were greeted by Estella's warm smile. She welcomed them without showing signs of surprise or discomfort, despite not being aware of Armando's dismissal. Armando, for his part, remained calm and normal, not revealing what had happened at the hospital. Estella approached Doña Luz with natural kindness. "Welcome to our home," she said with a welcoming smile. "My name is Estella." Doña Luz, somewhat shy but clearly moved by the warm welcome, introduced herself. "Thank you very much. My name is Luz, but everyone calls me Doña Luz." Estella, always attentive and helpful, had set aside some clean clothes for Doña Luz. "They're not new, but they're very clean," explained Estella, handing the clothes to Doña Luz. "I hope they'll be comfortable for you." Doña Luz thanked her, visibly moved by so much kindness. In addition, Estella had already prepared a space for Doña Luz in the living room, arranging the sofa with a clean and fragrant blanket. "You can sleep here tonight. We want you to feel at home," said Estella, showing the sofa. Doña Luz began to refuse, not wanting to cause any trouble, but Armando intervened, insisting, "We insist, Doña Luz. It's important to me to look after your health tonight. Tomorrow you can decide what to do." Doña Luz, still somewhat hesitant, accepted the offer. She had never been treated with such consideration and kindness. Estella's hospitality and Armando's genuine concern made her feel valued and respected. While Estella served dinner, Armando and Doña Luz sat in the living room. Armando discreetly watched over the lady, ensuring she was comfortable and safe. The atmosphere in Armando and Estella's house was one of human warmth and care, a stark contrast to the cold and impersonal environment of the hospital from which Armando had been dismissed. Sitting on the sofa, Doña Luz looked around, feeling grateful and welcomed, a rare sensation in her life in recent years. After dinner, the household routine unfolded calmly. Armando and Estella put Victoria to bed, ensuring the little girl was comfortable and sleepy. Then they went to check on Doña Luz, who was sitting on the sofa. She expressed her gratitude with simple yet emotionally charged words. "Thank you for everything you're doing for me," she said, her words resonating with sincerity. Though apparently asleep, Armando and Estella went to the kitchen for a more private conversation. They spoke in hushed tones, careful not to disturb the night's tranquility. "Something happened at the hospital today," Armando began hesitantly, recounting every detail of the day from Doña Luz's arrival to his dismissal. Estella listened attentively, her expression alternating between concern and understanding. When Armando finished, she placed her hand on his. "You did the right thing, Armando. Helping someone in need is always the right path. God will show us a way out," she said, her voice filled with faith and hope. Meanwhile, Doña Luz, still awake on the sofa, listened to every word of their conversation. She had tried to sleep, but the restlessness of her mind kept her awake. Hearing about Armando's dismissal and Estella's concern, her heart tightened. She felt guilty for being the cause of such trouble for such a generous and kind family. "Worst of all," Armando continued, "is that the cost of Victoria's treatment is increasing. Estella, I don't know how we're going to manage now," he said, his voice heavy with worry. Despite the visible anxiety on her face, Estella tried to maintain hope. "We'll find a way to take care of our little one. God never abandons us." As the night progressed, the house fell into a peaceful silence, with everyone lost in their thoughts. Armando and Estella faced uncertainty about their future, while Doña Luz grappled with guilt and gratitude. But amidst the challenges, there was a glimmer of hope, the warmth of human kindness, and the belief that somehow they would overcome these obstacles together, a hug strengthening their union in the midst of adversity. Although concerned about the future, they were determined to face the challenges together and do everything possible for the well-being of their family. As the morning progressed, bringing with it the first rays of sunlight filtering through the window, Doña Luz woke up feeling slightly more stable, but still burdened with thoughts. Armando was the first to check on her. Finding her awake, he asked kindly, "How are you feeling this morning, Doña Luz?" She responded with a faint smile. "A little better, thank you for your concern." Armando noticed she seemed calmer, though still wearing a pensive expression. Ever attentive, Estella invited Doña Luz to breakfast with them. The aroma of fresh coffee and toast filled the kitchen, creating a warm atmosphere despite the challenges they faced. The couple continued to treat Doña Luz with exceptional kindness. Sitting at the table with them, Doña Luz could hardly believe there were such generous and welcoming people in the world. During breakfast, Doña Luz expressed her gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done for me, but I think it's time for me to leave," she said, her voice filled with gratitude and some reluctance. Estella, with her usual generosity, responded, "You can stay with us for as long as you need, Doña Luz." But Doña Luz insisted, "I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, but I can't stay any longer." Understanding her decision, Armando offered money for the taxi. "I know you lost your wallet with all your documents. Please accept this for the taxi ride," he said, extending some bills. Doña Luz hesitated but finally accepted. "I'll return it as soon as I can," she promised. Armando smiled kindly. "You don't have to worry about that." With a heart full of gratitude and a mind still worried, Doña Luz bid farewell to the couple. She left that morning, but that goodbye was definitely not the end of this recent friendship. Returning to his daily routine, Armando faced the new reality of being unemployed. He began the search for a new job, distributing resumes to various hospitals in Guadalajara. With each delivery, there was hope mixed with anxiety. At each hospital, he left not just a piece of paper, but also the hope for an opportunity that could change their difficult situation. While waiting for responses, Armando didn't sit still. He started organizing to offer small services in nearby neighborhoods, like mowing lawns or making minor repairs. "Maybe I can help with something around here," he told the neighbors, trying to find ways to bring in some money. Each task completed brought a small financial relief, but the worry about the future remained. With the last payment he received from the hospital, Armando bought 2 boxes of the medication needed for Victoria, enough to cover 2 months of treatment. As he organized the medications, he thought, "I need to find a solution before this runs out. Victoria can't go without her medicine, and the money Estella receives at school is only enough for our food and our little house's expenses. I need to act fast to save my family." The responsibility of caring for his daughter's health weighed heavily on his shoulders, mingling with the fear of the unknown. Despite being focused on solving immediate problems, Armando couldn't help but worry about Doña Luz. He wondered frequently if she had arrived safely at her destination. "I hope Doña Luz is all right and that the Lord guides her steps and her health. If it is your will, Father, I hope to reunite with her," he murmured in his nightly prayers. Armando and Estella, despite the difficulties, maintained a strong bond. They supported each other, finding strength in one another. "We will overcome this together. We are strong. We can work whatever is necessary. I don't mind working 2 shifts as long as our daughter gets her treatment. I'm with you, my love. We'll get through this, as we always have," Estella said, trying to maintain an optimistic demeanor. At dawn, the sound of the phone cut through the silence of Armando's house, snapping him out of his morning thoughts. With his heart racing at the possibility of it being a response to the countless resumes he had distributed, he hurried to answer. "Good morning. Is this Armando Salazar?" a deep and polite voice asked. Armando confirmed, trying to contain the nervousness in his voice. "Yes, it's me. How can I help you?" The voice responded. "I'm Dr. Lopez from the Human Resources Department of a hospital. We're interested in your profile and would like to invite you for an interview." Armando could hardly believe what he was hearing. "An interview? Are you sure it's for me?" he asked, almost stuttering. "Yes, Mr. Salazar. We are impressed with your experience and would like to speak with you in person, the voice replied. Armando's excitement grew with each word. Then Dr. Lopez provided the address for the interview, and to Armando's surprise, it was the address of Hospital San Angel, his former workplace. Confused, he interrupted. "Excuse me, could you repeat the address? It seems to be that of Hospital San Angel, where I used to work." Dr. Lopez confirmed calmly. "Exactly, Mr. Salazar. Hospital San Angel." Armando was stunned. "But I was fired from there recently," he said, trying to understand the situation. Dr. Lopez replied, "I am aware of your previous situation, Mr. Salazar, but we would like to talk to you again if you're interested." Of course, Armando felt a mix of emotions, surprise and a bit of distrust. He didn't want to go back to work in such an elitist place, but given the situation he was in, how could he choose now? "This is incredible," he said with a somewhat disheartened but firm tone. "Of course, I accept the interview. When should I come, he asked, still trying to process how this could be happening. Dr. Lopez provided the details for the interview and said he should come the next morning. After saying goodbye, Armando remained motionless for a moment. The situation was very strange, but he would go to that interview. Victoria was more important than anything. When Estella returned home later that day, Armando could hardly wait to share the news of the call he had received. As soon as she entered, he ran to her, his face radiating a mix of nervousness and excitement. "Estella, you won't believe it. I received a call this morning," he began, barely containing his anxiety. Noticing Armando's agitation, Estella responded with a curious look. "What happened? Any news?" Armando quickly explained about the call from Dr. Lopez and the invitation for an interview back at Hospital San Angel. Hearing this, Estella's face lost some of its brightness. "Armando, that's the hospital that fired you. They don't care about everyone, only those who have a lot of money," she said understandingly. Armando nodded, understanding his wife's concerns. I know Armando realized that Victoria, who was playing quietly in a corner of the living room, had a high fever. Estella, with a mixture of concern and nervousness, quickly said, "Armando, we need to take her to the hospital now. She's burning up." Without wasting time, they took Victoria in their arms and rushed to the children's hospital where she had always been treated. Upon arriving at the hospital, Victoria's condition was quickly assessed by the medical team. Seeing the severity, they rushed her to an emergency room, leaving Armando and Estella outside, filled with anxiety and fear. The hospital corridor seemed endlessly long and silent as they waited for news. Hours passed, with each minute feeling like an eternity for the distressed parents. Finally, the doctor who attended to Victoria appeared with a serious expression. He informed them, "Your daughter has had a significant worsening. We'll need to admit her for monitoring and intensive treatment." The doctor's words hit Armando and Estella like a blow. Trying to wing of the hospital to serve those in need, we could offer quality treatment for free or at a greatly reduced cost. Doña Luz listened to Armando's proposal attentively, with a sparkle of approval in her eyes. "Armando, this is a wonderful idea," she replied enthusiastically. "Let's do it. We'll allocate the necessary budget for the construction of a community hospital near San Angel. It won't just be a wing, it will be a place where those in need can receive quality care without worrying about costs." Doña Luz's decision was celebrated as an innovative step and an example of social responsibility in the healthcare sector. The project of the community hospital quickly took shape, with Armando working hand in hand with Dona Luz and Dr. Lopez to ensure that everything went according to plan. The dream of accessible and quality healthcare was becoming a reality, and Armando felt deeply grateful and excited to be part of that change. He knew that this was only the beginning of a new chapter for Hospital San Angel and the community it would serve. On the day of the inauguration of the new hospital, named Hospital Victoria in honor of Armando's daughter, the excitement was palpable. Doña Luz Hernandez, with an expression of pride and satisfaction, took to the stage to give her speech. The sky was clear, and a gentle breeze accompanied her words, which deeply touched everyone present. Dear friends and colleagues, today is not just the inauguration of a hospital, but the celebration of a principle that should guide us all. To help without looking at who, began Doña Luz, her firm voice resonating in the space. This hospital is the result of a simple act of kindness, a genuine gesture of care for a stranger that transformed lives and reignited the flame of hope and humanity in our hearts. Armando and Estella were there, witnessing the birth of a dream that began with a simple act of kindness and was now materializing in the form of Hospital Victoria, a legacy of love, care, and humanity. It was a moment they would cherish forever, a touching reminder of the power of compassion and the change that a single gesture can bring. If you enjoyed this story, please let us know by liking and subscribing to continue discovering exciting narratives. Your support inspires us to keep sharing amazing stories almost every day. Don't miss the next fascinating narration. It's already appearing on your screen. We greatly appreciate your support. See you soon.